Hello, hi everyone. Before we start this presentation on my design process for Romeo and Juliet, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the indigenous land on which we reside as an expression of gratitude, appreciation, and awareness. I am currently in Los Angeles, California, which is on the traditional homeland of the Dangba and Chumash. We also like to acknowledge the digital technology by which we are coming together today is not available in many indigenous communities. Thank you. I would also like to say a special hello to all the Spanish speakers across the nation. Hola, mi nombre es Efren Delgadillo Jr. Soy diseñador de escenografía en los Estados Unidos. Bienvenidos a mi estudio ahora. Les voy a presentar mi proceso de diseñar una obra. La obra es Romeo and Juliet. Ojalá les guste. Muchas gracias. Hello, my name is Efren Delgadillo Jr. I'm a set designer, scenic designer in the United States. And today I'm going to present my design process for Romeo and Juliet. This work was done at Oregon Shakespeare Company in Ashland, Oregon. And yeah, let's dive right in. I'm going to share my screen with you and go through it all. First, I would like to say a special thank you to Oregon Shakespeare Festival and everyone that works there, and our director, Damaso Rodriguez, who lives in Portland, Oregon, and to my collaborators. A lot of the magic is not just solely scenic ideas. It's all coming from people, all the different designers and all the people, technicians, all comes to life. So yeah, I just want to say that a special thank you to all my collaborators. So my design process really starts here with the words that William Shakespeare wrote. This is the place that catapults me into research. I think about what I read. I jot down notes. I sometimes do little scribbles on the script of little ideas, even if it's as simple as what I think a chair should look like. And in this production, a lot of the set, of what the set design became, turned into is a series of objects, furniture. So it was a scaled down version of my process in each of these elements. So there's a bed, there's mirrors. So one part of the play that really jumped out at me is the party scene. And so the discussion with the director, with Damaso, was about that, like what the actors looked like in these environments. So the Elizabethan theater is a beautiful theater that provides all the solutions pretty much. And so what you need to do is fill in and support the necessities to tell the story. So so it went from reading the script to the research, and I landed on this really beautiful image on the internet. So my research is comprised of books and a collection of images and folders, and also sometimes I go to image source websites or just Google Images, and I found this image, and it really captured how naive and how innocent Romeo and Juliet are, and also just the environment of this opulent background. So it made me. It was a nice snapshot of what was inside my mind. And of course, the reason there's tension in the story is because of the parents, of what they want their kids to be, or what they don't want them to be, or who they want them to hang out with. And so this image reminded me of the parents and the multiplicity it also reminded me of the party scene. So that's how the idea of mirrors came to be, and also how Romeo and Juliet can be playful in that party scene. So really, the the idea of mirrors was sort of the anchor in objects or in architecture for Romeo and Juliet. So here's a contemporary image of what perhaps what that party scene can be, and the mirrors just also love how they're it's a modern accents. And so the whole conversation between the director and I was what's old and what's new, and what's a way we can put a spin on the architecture that feels part of that old world, but also familiar and accessible into our world. So I take my research and I do a sketch. So this is my version of a sketch. I did a site visit, which means the theater takes you to this location in Ashland, Oregon, and I took a picture during the day, but I put a Photoshop night sky and a moon, and I wanted to see if this mirror idea was a good idea. So not only for me to sometimes if you don't see it actually on paper or in front of you, your mind will deceive you. And I think that's one big part of being a set designer, is training your eye to see composition and color and shape and form, and figure out if what you're doing looks good, but also does it serve the play? Does it help tell the story? And so this jumping off point for me, this party scene for Romeo and Juliet was sort of the anchor, like I said before. And so I take my sketch and refine them. I show them to the director, and I perhaps there's just no way we can support these, but I wanted to sort of play around with the classic shape first, and then I came up with this, which is what else can support and tell the story of a party. The chandeliers to make it feel more of an inside space, interior space, and then these were the banners that change with projection. So I went from a Capulet design to a Montague design, or both in this case, because it's the party scene. And so you can see here how they evolved into a rectangle, and the lighting designer and I worked together to make these light up with wireless LEDs. It was really amazing. So the back of these, when we didn't use them, they receded into the recesses of the Elizabethan theater. So this is the Elizabethan theater, also which is named the Lizzie for short. And so these would turn around, flip around, and kind of blend in with the theater, and roll around and create walls, create architecture, create barriers or openings. So the design was the set design was very much malleable. It was, you can shape it and have fun with different compositions on stage. And so this is the model, which I'll actually show you in a bit, so you can understand how small this is. It's a 1/4-inch model. So this is the house, the Lizzie, and as you can see, there's the design was all about these door mirror units. There's some doors that replicated. There's some other doors here, so you can see that when they flip around, that's what they look like, to mimic the Lizzie. There's also a gesture here of the moon. So as you can see, I've always been attracted to this gesture of there's the talk of moon in Romeo and Juliet, and so the way it affected me was very profound. It was pretty heavy element, and also in those two characters. So I wanted to incorporate this moon. My first idea was for it to be a balloon and that lights up, but the weather there is we just couldn't do that. So I stuck it in this musician gallery. So there's several layers to this theater, very much like in Shakespeare's time for the Old Globe, where there's already a built-in balcony and a musician gallery. So this is called the outer above. And the way we access it was two mirrored spiral staircases to access that balcony, as you'll see in the last slide. But the moon was revealed with opening doors, and for moments that were very passionate, very uncontrollable for the characters, almost like a outside force was acting on them. So, and also just to bring in this powerful lighting element, so it gives a lot of mood. So, so you see here the way to realize your design, like how you take your idea from just a sketch or a digital rendering, like from Photoshop. The way to realize your ideas is through drafting. And so these scaled, meticulous drafting is what you send to the technical director, and the technical director is a person in charge of budgeting time and labor and a workforce to build these objects for the production. So I do these drafting. This drafting is called an orthographic projection, which means a real-life 3D object represented in 2D, which is, this piece of paper. So we have a front view, a back view, top view. Here you can see the inspiration, and even I use this for my model pieces. That this is the back, which is here the to make look like the Lizzie. It's painted the same color as a Lizzie, so we could light it or not light it, and it would recede or disappear. And these are the mirrors. And then I have a research image. So I call this not very inspirational, but this is a literal research. So you can see a lot of how I took this influence and made it my own. And a person here, just for reference, it's always good to relate it to the performer. And this is when they first came out. It still had the mirror still had a protective plastic layer. But when they came out, they just look gorgeous, and they even become even more beautiful. So this is during rehearsal, and so this is a production photo, and here is the actual party scene, and these flipped around and revealed Juliet in almost as if she was in a corner hiding by herself. And you could sort of see, I think you can see the other mirrors that are flipped around, and so this is that magical moment when he falls in love with her with first sight. And so this is the masquerade party. And then this is a wider shot with a lot of, I think all the performers, and you see how beautiful these were painted. Another person that helps you realize your design is a scenic artist. So I'm the scenic designer. I turn over something like a drafting, like this page that you saw, but it will have more detail about paint. And as you can see, she went above and beyond to make these gorgeous several layers and layers of paint. A real master with painting scenic elements. So that's the scenic painter. And here's a shot of the whole company. There's another mirror up here, and you see these little torches that were fiber optic lights or poles, and then there was 3D printed torch. So again, have these old world storytelling devices, but put through this modern lens. So here's another photograph of that magical kiss, and a really good close-up of the mirrors. Another element that was very important is Juliet's bed. So you see this classic silhouette, classic shape, but through my research, I fell in love with this LED technology and how it provided a look. The light emitted a particular kind of glow, and I was really attracted to that glow. And so I made or designed, I didn't make, the prop master, who is the person in charge of realizing handheld elements or furniture, was him and his team built this bed and incorporated that LED technology, and it was quite beautiful when it came out. And you'll see this in the model. This is the last slide, and I wanted to show you here that really iconic moment of the balcony scene, and you see the things. The set was actually meant to really hide. So the design was a spiral staircase that again was painted the same color as the theater to recede, is more functional than beautiful or decorative. And then these there's our mirrors, but turned around the opposite way. You can sort of see the gold mirror there, and then our elements, our little torches. So the reason another reason why I like to show Romeo and Juliet for younger audience, my design process is that process of research to sketching to, or sorry, reading the script, being affected by it, and then researching what your gut tells you, and then sketching in Photoshop or whatever program you want to use these days, and then drafting it out, and then turning in your drawing, technical drawing to the technical director. That process is pretty much a miniature version, or sorry, a scaled down version of what you do with all your elements, or what you do with your whole set. So that's the way I work, and a lot of my colleagues, professional colleagues, also have the same method of research and sketching, making models, and then drafting. All that, and throughout that whole time, you're showing your progress to your collaborators, you're showing your progress to your director and to the theater, and making sure it all is doable and falls within the time and falls within a budget, which, you know, there is a cap. You can dream big, but you can the reality is that there's, you know, a budget, and there's physics involved. Things can't float. Sometimes designers forget that. Yeah, let's take you over to the model. Stand by. Okay, let's move over to our model. So this is the house. The actual design of Romeo and Juliet has left. That production was in 2018, and so this model was in my studio again to design another show. But I still have the elements, some of the elements. So this is a little figure that's inch and a half tall, because it's quarter inch. Let me start over. It's this person, which represents Romeo, is an inch and a half tall, which represents 6 feet in quarter inch scale. So let me bring out some other elements. This a 3D printed spiral staircase that was on the side. So that replaced this staircase. When we did our production, we had 2 of them that was mirrored and really beautiful. And these little, these are the mirrors when sometimes we created rooms, we created space that way, and then for the party scene, they flipped around, and Romeo and Juliet weaved around, and that one picture where they're about to kiss was sort of something like that. Yeah, so these are also 3D printed, and right, they were about 6'8". So everything's from the sketch to that drafting, and that drafting also serves as a file that gets sent to the 3D printer, which is pretty cool. The bed was so there was doors that also revealed this opening down here, right in there, and the bed that was made out of steel, and in this little model, it's made out of brass that I soldered together, and that little platform would come out to about here, and there's, you know, the Juliet's room all of a sudden was totally activated. The whole space sort of shrunk down to this little platform with her on it. Yeah, and there were 6 of these, and all those little torches and the banners were here. They're somewhere in my studio, but I just could not find them. Of course, we also had benches and chairs above I think that's, let me turn that around because that is pretty much it. Now let me go back to my desk here. All right, welcome back. Hope you liked that little quick presentation of my design process. That was a lot of fun for me to share that with you, and I hope you learned a little something about what a set designer does. Yeah, have a great rest of your day, and yeah, thank you. Muchas gracias. Adios. Bye.